So this is part A of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, broadcast under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo editions on Saturday, the 2nd of September 2023. Now, the Murdoch-ed-SCUM, which never really acknowledged Mohamed al-Fayed while he was alive, has at last acknowledged him by name, the name that he preferred, al-Fayed, the name that the racist Jan Pisov of Private Lie persistently denied him. There was no right on Jan Pisov's part to deny al-Fayed the name that he chose for himself. So this is the scum. You can see Dodi in 26 years. So what it is saying is that al-Fayed dies 26 years after Dodi. This is very significant because the only Fleet Street tabloid that did any kind of acknowledgement of al-Fayed, especially reporting his consistent claim that the Brenda's monarchy was responsible for the murders of his son Dodi Fayed and Diana. Only the Daily Express published anything in any significant way. The others denied him that. But now the scum is saying on die crash anniversary, which is the day before he died, that was 31st of August 1997, when Dai and his son Dodi al-Fayed died, were murdered. And he dies a day after. So they say that he dies 26 years after Dodi, buried next to his tragic son. And then they are continuing. Both the scum and the Daily Mail is continuing the Diana tapes. By Diana tapes, they are referring to the tapes that Diana kind of recorded herself, which was later to be the basis of the book that Morton wrote about her life in the royal family, if you like. So this is the scum. Very difficult to get it into the camera because of the instability, because the camera is not stable. I'm putting this on the this laptop, and it has to be absolutely stable before the camera can capture the image. But that's the front page, and that is, to the extent that it is relevant, historic, because the racists and anti-Muslim scum and the rest of the Fleet Street is now acknowledging al-Fayed. The other thing is that he never withdrew one single line that he had said about Brenda's husband, Philip, whom he particularly blamed for the plot for the murder of his son and Diana. One of the most striking similarities in the behavior of the racist Fleet Street, the British tabloid and the populist sort of media, about their attitude to Harry and their attitude to Diana. Diana, according to Al-Fayed, was murdered because of her relationship with, or proximity or closeness with the Muslim. But I mean, she was closer to another Muslim, of course. But the relationship between Diana and a kind of non white person is very similar to Harry and his relationship with Meghan. And the comparison between the attitude of the racists towards Harry because of his relationship with Meghan and his marriage to Meghan, very similar to the relationship that the racists showed as being wrong between Fayed and Dodi Fayed and Diana. And this is something that Harry Windsor is extremely cautious about and aware of. And the more he looks at the various revelations, including this one that King Brian said that he wanted a girl when Harry was born. What a stupid thing to say. And then Brian refused to talk to mother-in-law, that is Diana's mom. And Diana told her stepmom, this woman Sean Kidd, we all hate you. So these are the things that are coming out. And it is quite clear that there are more things that will be published about both these, let's say, families. There is this Times newspaper magazine has got a cover page promotion of the book by Clive Myrie. Clive Myrie is of the Jamaican origin, but was born in England. And he says in the extracts that they are publishing with this interview, he says there has been racist abuse and death threats. I have overwhelming pity for these people. Now, as compared with Trevor Terrible Peelips, who was not born in England but behaves as if he was born more than in England. Clive Myrie, as compared to Trevor Terrible Peelips, is less strident in his mental slavery. He's a mental slave as well, but he's not as offensive to the morality, the ethics of anti-racism and opposing colonialism and slavery, etc., etc. So he was born and brought up in England, and yet he has been subject to death threats. And that is a clear, living rejection of the lies peddled by the mental slave, Terrible Peelips. Because Trevor Terrible Peelips says that Britain is the best country to live in, not to Clive Myrie, despite the fact that he has got these various sports and platforms on the BBC and the media. he would not be able to feel that this is the best country in the world. It's not. Racists put paid to it. He says that he has proved to himself that he is more than just a color. Now, that is a stupid statement by Clive Myrie, but that's a product of his brainwashing as well, because he doesn't have to be proving anything about color. But the fact that he has to focus on color and has to address that shows that he has not overcome that at all. So it's a contradictory statement, and a statement that actually defies universality, the universality that he should be actually aiming for. So while I'm critical of him, and I'm critical of him on other things which I shall come into later in this particular edition, I recognize the difference between him and the totally, completely disgraceful metal slave Trevor Terrible Phillips. If you put the pigmentation of both of those, that is, talking about the color thing, you will find that they are very similar in terms of pigmentation. There are some differences, but and Trevor Terrible Phillips has not, to my knowledge at least, written or published or spoken anything about receiving any death threats at all, which shows that the ones that are issuing or have been issuing or have issued death threats against Clive Myrie are doing that after thinking about it, thinking about his role and his opinion, etc., etc. And the ones that have not done anything similar against Trevor Terrible Phillips are doing the same by thinking. So it's not a kind of behavior that can be ascribed to thoughtless people. They are very thoughtful, these racists. Now, in the scum, there is this other. Yes, there is the continuation of this scandal about schools. It's pages 6 and 7. Bricks and mortified. And it has got 156 schools found to have dangerous levels of dodgy RAAC. 20 hospitals are undergoing refurbishment work due to Duff concrete. 698 million pounds fund to try to eradicate RAAC material by 2035. And they're saying that Labour controlled Wales government is worse. Now, this is a rare item of news. Couple facing £1,000 fine for the lost cat posters. So let's go into the details. What are they saying? A desperate couple who put up posters to try to find their missing cat were threatened with a £1,000 fine by council jobsworths. Workers also ripped the flyers off trees and telegraph poles near Andy MacDonald and Lisa Mitton's home. They taped the signs up after 9-year-old Otis below vanished last Friday. They taped the, but just days later, video footage from their doorbell shows Newham Council staff removing them in Forest Gate, East London. So it's Roxana Fias then. Sound engineer ND42 complained, but was told he needed permission from the council's licensing department and could be fined £1,000. An email added Newham Council have been made aware of the poster and therefore a member of the cleansing team have removed it. Under the Highways Act 1980, it is illegal to paste posters on street lights, signs, or trees. And he said, they can fine me as much as they want. We have had to print hundreds of leaflets and put them through letterboxes because we are scared of them taking the posters again. We don't have to have children, so Otis is like our baby. TB costume designer Lisa 42 added, it's a horrible situation, and this feels like they're twisting the knife. The council spokesman said fly posting is illegal as it has a detrimental effect on the look and clean, cleanliness of the borough. And there is an editorial on page 12 of the Sun, which we shall read. This is page 9, so editorial on page 12 says that the Newham Council are prats. Says they imagine giving the order to rip down posters about a missing cat. The heartlessness of it, the boneheaded stupidity. We hope Otis returns home and Newham Council's job swards take a hard look at themselves in the mirror. Well, the propaganda line that Roxana Fias uses is that everything we do, people are at the heart of everything we do. Well, these two people who treat Otis as their baby, which is absolutely understandable and correct, are being denied their feeling for their baby, Otis. And there will be people outraged about the stupidity of Newham Council. What am I referring to? When the United Nations special envoy, that is the description they gave, it's not my description, the Australian professor of law at the New York University was made United Nations envoy on extreme poverty and hardship and housing, etc., etc. And he visited the United Kingdom in 2018, only a few months after Roxana Fias first got elected as the replacement for Robin Wales in Newham at the expense of the community. When he visited the UK in November 2018, he attended a meeting that was held in Newham in Barking Road in Kenningtown. The meeting took place at the premises owned by the organization called Community Links. And we have read this before, and I'm going to read this again. And there was this item on the independent website that is accessible, and I'm accessing it now. It's an item that is byline to the independence. Let's see what she is described as. Social affairs correspondent, May Bullman, and her piece is posted at the UK time 13:59 on Tuesday, the 13th of November 2018. And the heading to that piece is Mother describes being forced to drink her baby's milk as people living with poverty come forward to tell UN envoy their stories. I was in my slippers, the mother is quoted as saying. It was so cold. I plucked up the courage to ask them, to say I am hungry. I have a baby, but they said, we can't give you anything. I had to drink my baby's milk. Now, this is May Bullman's report. And May Bullman also took the picture of the meeting where Roxana Fayaz is seen with the microphone in her hand addressing the gathering. The only recognizable face in the picture from the local community is, of course, Lynn Brown, the one of the two MPs. And then behind Roxana Fayaz is at the center, Philip Olston. Now, in the piece, she says, that is Bullman, says that Fayaz listened to these remarks by the mother. And then she apologized. I'm coming to that. After hearing the witness statements, Newham's mayor Roxana Fayaz said, can I just apologize on behalf of myself as mayor of Newham and on behalf of the council, that is Newham Council, that you, the person who had experienced the cruelty by Newham Council staff, experienced that treatment at the hands of people that we, that is Newham Council, employ. It shouldn't have happened. Now, that was a statement that Roxana Fayaz made on the 12th of November 2018. And now, today, on page 9 of today's Sun, which is the 2nd of September 2023, the heading is Mio Nasty. That is, Newham Council is nasty. Couple face £1,000 fine for their lost cat posters. And this is 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 5 calendar years later, after Roxana Fayaz's apology on behalf of herself and as mayor of Newham on behalf of the council, that kind of behavior by the council staff shouldn't have happened. But here is a report saying that council staff are being cruel and oppressive. And the Sun is saying that the council employees, the Newham council employees, are brats. Imagine giving the order to rip down posters about a missing cat. The heartlessness of it, the heartlessness of Roxana Fayaz, the boneheaded stupidity of Roxana Fayaz. We hope Otis returns home. Well, we, the Khoodeelaar campaign, of course, hope Otis returns home and Otis is safe and is well looked after by his parents. And the Sun says, and Newham Council's job swards take a hard look at themselves in the mirror. Now, since the meeting by Philip Olston in Kennington in Newham in November 2012, sorry, 2018, since that meeting, a woman was found dead years after she died in the same area, Kennington. And all the reports about her contacts with Newham Council and the circumstances of her dying unknown, unattended, unhelped show that far from Roxana Fias changing anything, she has allowed she has allowed Newham Council staff to behave callously, cruelly, heartlessly towards people, as the Sun says, and we are not calling it scum for this particular issue. And the online versions, now this one is 12 hours ago, online version of the same story, and it says, Mionasti, we put up posters in desperate bid to find missing cat, but council Jobsworths tore them down and threatened £1,000 fine. Is published on the 1st of September, updated on the 1st of September as well, 21:09 UK time. So let's see if the video shows Newham Council's Jobsworths doing it. So Newham Council has a Jobsworth come near the poster in a van and take the poster off. There is a picture of their baby, the Otis one. The Otis is pictured in full in the online art. We should be talking about Otis more. So we are sending best wishes for the Otis. So we shall be talking more about Neom Council's cruelty, corruption, negligence, and criminality, and the fact that the same council has been found guilty of neglecting a Newham residents' complaints about mold and damp in his house. And according to the Housing Ombudsman, Newham Council took 3 years before doing anything, and they still continue to make false communications, including communications they have made to the Housing Ombudsman. Roxana Fiaz is not proving to be any better than Robin Wales. And in my challenges to Robin Wales on live television on the 14th of March 2018, that is few months before the United Nations envoy, poverty envoy Philip Olston attended the meeting at the community links in Barking Road, I listed the number of bad things that were being done to the people of Newham by the imposition of the mayor system, the corrupt, undemocratic, anti democratic mayor system. And I pointed out Robin Wales's cruelty when he said to one of the people affected by poverty and homelessness and housing crisis in Newham, saying, if you can't afford to live in Newham, you can't afford to live in Newham. So Newham Council was corrupt, cruel, heartless when Robin Wales was in the post of the mayor. And Newham Council has been persistently corrupt and cruel since Robin Wales was replaced by Roxana Fias. Reading back to Clive Myrie and the lead promotion on page 1 of the magazine, Times Magazine, featuring Clive Myrie. The main picture of Clive Myrie is death threats, the BBC, and how the Windrush scandal devastated my family. I have proved to myself that I am more than just a color. BBC News presenter and mastermind host Clive Myrie has become one of the most admired figures on television. Now he's written a memoir about growing up black in Britain. He tells Satnam Sanghera about racial injustices here and in America and why the Windrush scandal made him angry and ashamed of my own country. Now, Satnam Sanghera is an Indian origin individual who is employed by the Times. And there are pictures of Myrie's father, Myrie's mother, Lynn, and reporting for the BBC from Liberia in 1995, a tearful broadcast from Ukraine. Myrie, far right, with his sister Judith and brother Garfield, and with Trevor McDonald, and at a march in America after the killing of George Floyd. Reporting from the COVID ward of the Royal London Hospital during the pandemic. So there is a lot of references to the racist treatment of the people of Windrush generation. For instance, Myrie describes terrorism as Fayed, that a citizen of the world, which is what he feels like after a lifetime of international reporting, is a citizen of nowhere as utter nonsense. Without naming them, he says he has a bottomless well of contempt for a columnist to refer to George Floyd's death as unfortunate, then proceeded to lay into, as he put it, the mob of protesters. He confesses to tearing his hair out with frustration when Hillary Clinton took so long to step aside for Barack Obama, and says of one of Obama's early speeches, "This was my kind of politics." He tells me he thinks that migration has enriched Britain overall. He doesn't disguise the fact that he is probably a monarchist, handing out badges at receptions for the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, paying tribute to the role the Queen played during the COVID, and relaying the fact that he is a taciturn father who assembled car batteries for a living, only recently told him he was proud of him for the first time after watching him on the BBC's royal funeral coverage. And he rails against the anti change marchers who denigrate attempts to change society for the better as woke. It seems to me that white society actually woke up, and that turning back the tide of change will become progressively more difficult as Generation Z becomes even more influential. How does he feel about the word woke itself? It's becoming a badge of honor for a lot of people and the opposite for others. And there is a picture of him with his wife, Catherine, taken in 2012. I would counter that they are a minority, but it's a minority that very, very long loud holder system at the moment, whether it's social media, right wing radio, or right wing newspapers. Would he say he is woke? If woke means believing that people are equal, that diversity is a good thing, that color is a skin deep, that we should all be treated fairly and equally and decently. I'm as woke as the next person. If that's what woke means, what will he say to people who say that his book crosses a line? There is opinion and opinion. I'm not sure I'm offering opinions. Actually, I think I'm just pointing out in a personal way facts and evidence. I think that's slightly different from saying, well, I think this and I think that. It's interesting what Fiona says, but I think there is more that presenters can say without it being the subject of some bias controversy. And I think too often we are too vanilla. The insistence that BBC presenters remain neutral has become contentious. Even acknowledging the existence of racism in deemed political by some. Read that again because I have read one word wrong. The, listen, the insistence that BBC presenters remain neutral has become contentious. Even acknowledging the existence of racism is deemed political by some. Right, Myrie says. Now, if someone labels that at me, I will say, well, what side of history do you think you are going to be on? That's what I love about the BBC. It might take time to move with what is now established as the correct opinion on certain things, but it eventually does it. It did it on the race or taking the knee on LGBTQ. It's done it on all those things that at the time a lot of the rest of society were saying that's disgraceful. I think the BBC more times than not gets it right. It has got it right in some in terms of public mood and opinion because it's paid for it by everybody through the license fee. And if it doesn't get the mood right, it's finished. There are not many BBC presenters you can imagine getting away with saying this. But if anyone can, it's probably Myrie. It's a savvy operator, widely admired within the BBC newsroom. He is too smart to comment on the Hugh Edwards affair when I encourage him to do so, and notes with expert diplomacy when I refer to him as the most senior on screen journalist at the BBC, that Sophie Reward is probably that person. Besides, he has the thing that his friend, the late George Alagiah, had when he got away with talking about similar issues, evident humanity. Now, of course, this article is completely messed up by the reference in that way of George Alagiah. Moreover, there is an unanswerable moral force to what he is saying in the book. I'm thinking here not just of his family story, but of his experience as a BBC presenter. He admits things have improved hugely in terms of the screen on-screen ethnic representation, but argues there are still too few senior producers or members of management who are black or Asian. And like every other black person in public life, he is often the focus of intense racial hatred. When he was reporting from the Royal London Hospital in the early stages of COVID 19, the Royal London Hospital stated simply, fuck off, you black cunt. Another time he received a card that featured a gorilla on its front. We don't want people like you on our screens, read the message. A female viewer once wrote in via email with the subject line, "Why are you dressed like a pimp?" She continued, "Love the I don't give a fuck approach to presenting. But tonight you look like a badly dressed pimp. Perhaps it's time to look for a new role outside the BBC." This viewer went on to state that as a license holder, this viewer that is, feels that I have every right to comment. Reporting from Ukraine with a note declaring to Clive it's Kiev, not Kiev, you token twat, woke warrior. If he were white, November 2017, after Myrie had been working in America, he received a message from BBC security. A 66-year-old man from Yorkshire had left threats to kill him. They included 04 10 17. Well, Myrie best stay in Vegas because just guess who has gone to the top of the list. And he is much easier. 07 10 17. Have you told Myrie he is for the job? 30th October 17. The nigger Myrie, does he know not to call himself an Englishman? And does he know he's at the top of my list of BBC niggers for being the recipient of a 303? It's a reference to the gun round. If I can't get him, then some other BBC nigger will do. So, this is the reason I am reading all of this extensively, is to point out the fact that the mental slave Trevor Terrible Pealeaves and others like him, who say that Britain is the most tolerant country, etc., could not be more wrong. Growing up in Britain is a real Myrie story in the Times next week. So this is a promotion. And what this is showing, quite from the fact that I have got lots of criticism of him about his role, this is a direct rejection by evidence of the lies being peddled by the mental slave, Trevor Terrible Phillips, who is in complete, utter, absolute denial of racism in Britain altogether. So we shall be ending this particular part, introduction, part A of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, broadcasting on the banner, under the banner of the baby angel Geronimo. And we are ending this by wishing Otis returns home safely. And we shall be publishing more about Otis on our social media posts and platforms. And wish Otis's mom and dad the best. And we shall continue an update on Otis as and when we hope he safely returns home. This is being ended at 08:25 GMT on Saturday, the 2nd of September 2023.